This is Adam Watson.
Levon Baker.
You're listening to the Darkslinger Mafia podcast. And tonight, as promised, we have returning to our podcast a very special guest, Mr. W. Sam Quinton. How's it going tonight?
Hey guys, it's great. It's good to be back. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, great to have you back.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're just about ready to launch your next Kickstarter, a relaunch of 47 Furious Tales. Is that correct?
That is correct. Wednesday, January 23rd.
That's coming up quick.
Yeah, we're coming out swinging. It's been a little more than a year since the first attempt, and so it's a different ball game this time.
Is that all the time it's been? Man, it seems like it's been a lot longer than that.
It does. It feels a lot longer because it seems like, every couple of months it's a little more work into it, a little more investment of time and resources into it. And on the one hand, it seems like it's been a decade ago, and then the other hand, it seems like it's been like a couple of months ago. It's just
right.
Time does weird things when you're on Kickstarter clock.
It does. It does. How many Kickstarters have you done in that time period since then?
Let's see here. It's a really good question. I've had 3 after that have funded.
Okay.
Yeah, because Coming Over Echo Rock came out and funded. The Steel Road, my weapon source book came out and funded pretty well, and then Whispers of Persephone came out of nowhere and really just blew away all my previous Kickstarters. It was a wild ride.
Nice. That's always great to hear. So your previous Kickstarters have been RPGs, and this one is a comic. You want to go ahead and tell the audience what it's about?
Yeah, this is based on the story of the 47 Ronin who avenged the death of their lord, their daimyo, Asano Naganori. It's referred to historically commonly in the English translation as the Eiko incident. And we've taken the characters from that historic account and from the literary accounts, and we've turned them into anthropomorphic animals to make them a little more easily distinguishable than people, and taken the story, filled in some of the historical gaps, taken the narrative back to before Asano left for Edo for his, what would turn out to be his fateful last trip, and we're going to be introducing the characters and how they lived, and some of the challenges they were facing before the incident happened. It's going to be issue 1 of a 12-issue series. And we're going to work on funding issue 1 with fantastic art from Alexia Veldhausen. She's been right there by my side the whole time, committed to the project. And we're going to see if we can stun people with what we've got coming out.
All right, sounds great. How many pages is the first issue going to clock in at?
It's 28 interior pages,
28
full color. Yeah, 28 interior, full color. We're doing it in English because I don't speak Japanese, unfortunately. We're doing it in English. And I think that people are going to be surprised by some of the characters that are being incorporated and some of the perspectives we're taking on them. We're giving little glimpses into their personalities. And a big part of this first issue is going to be Yoshio's relationship to Asano Naganori and what decision-making was going on prior to Asano leaving Eiko for Edo. And I think it's going to be a fun bit of furious samurai action, along with some interesting little tidbits leading into what happens further downstream. I mean, the story's 300 plus years old.
Right.
And it just doesn't seem to get old with the retelling. It's a very vibrant, energetic story of loyalty and commitment to cause and people trying to do what is right, not only for themselves and their own personal code, but what's right for their fellows and the people they're loyal to. And it's something I'm pretty proud of, actually. I really like the way the story has developed out for this series. I'm looking forward to putting it in people's hands.
How much of it is done so far?
Well, all of issue 1, let's back up for a second. All of the story elements, are in and laid out. Artistically wise, we've got 4 full-colored pages. The covers are done. Layouts are pretty much already assigned for the remaining of it. Alexia is going to be able to finish the rest of it by the end of April. And so we're kickstarting to raise the rest of the money to pay Alexia and get the print run done so we can fill back rewards and handle all that and put the book in people's hands.
Are all of the Ronin going to be the same type of animal, or are you representing them with various animals? How's that going to work?
Various different animals. So we've got Yoshio and Chikara as squirrels. And we've got Yasube, who is really this larger-than-life kind of figure in the historical perspective. And his adopted father/father-in-law, pardon me, I just lost his name. That's a terrible thing when you forget your character's name. Yahe, sorry, it took me a moment. Yahe, who was an older samurai, much older samurai. He would be old even by today's standards, who are depicted as foxes. And then we have the youngest of the 47, Nobuyuki, who's actually depicted as a little hamster kind of guy. I've been told he's the cutest of the bunch. And then we have Asano Naganori, who is a different type of squirrel that's more authentic to Japan. We have a geisha, who is also a fox, an actual prostitute, who is a rabbit, and then Kira, the shogunate official, who is the primary antagonist throughout the series, as a rat.
Okay. And how did you decide on each animal for the characters to be?
Originally, we were going to do all squirrels for the run-in, but the problem with that is animals tend to share some pretty familiar characteristics.
Yes.
And so it makes it hard to distinguish them. And you can only do so much by changing up someone's uniform color like they did in Star Trek, right? So,
right.
Alexia brought that point up. We molded it over a little bit and came to the conclusion to use some other animals for that. And so we've actually got some other animal types for some of the other characters that are present. So we've got monkeys that are depicted for certain characters, a few other things I think people are going to like to see. And it's weird to see how it all came together, because some people have said, well, is it like Yosagi Yojimbo, or is it like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? And I have to say, no, it's really not, you know. The art style is entirely different. I mean, you've seen the cover image.
Yes.
Which is depicting Yoshio standing against that paper and floral background. Mm-hmm. And it's one of those things where there's been a lot of attention brought into it. And I don't know if you've seen it too, but Alexia has been teasing out the work in progress for the page inking and everything.
Oh, no, I haven't.
Oh, wow, you've been missing out. I'll point you to some of those this weekend. It's looking very nice. She's going to get some more pages colored in the next couple of days that we're going to go into the actual Kickstarter itself. And I'll go ahead and send you a preview link so you can check it out once I get those layered in, because they really do, I think, make the page. It's something I'm really excited about because it's such an important story culturally in Japan anyway. And I think that there's a lot that can be learned about the idea of sticking to what you believe and committing to your cause and doing everything that you believe to be right, regardless of the consequences. Yeah. And I think that 300-something years later, this is still ringing very loudly in people's minds.
Yeah, stories like this and like the Battle at Thermopylae, they last definitely. For a reason. Yeah. When I first saw the first Kickstarter last year, the artwork in it I found to be more reminiscent of like Mouse Guard, as far as if somebody's looking to compare it, I wouldn't say Eastman and Laird or Stan Sakai or anything like that. To me, I saw more elements of something that would be found in more like Mouse Guard, that type of anthropomorphized animal. Is that a little bit more fair to say?
I think that's really correct. I think that's a good takeaway from it, because it's one of those things where you don't think about it until you actually have to sit down and draw it. But when you have people, you know what people look like. When you have squirrels, you know what they look like. But when you try and bring the two together, it's not as easy as just sticking a head and tail on something and calling it done, because you have to rework the proportions. You have to look at how the character moves and how the postures are reflected from scene to scene, and it makes a hell of a difference. And unfortunately, Alexia is professionally trained and very gifted, and has been able to face those difficulties. And I think she's done a remarkable job.
Yeah, our artwork is really, really solid.
From what I've seen, I agree.
So, yeah. Do you have a favorite character so far of the ones that you've seen?
I don't know any of them by name, but I absolutely loved the main image that you showed in the first Kickstarter. That character, that's what made me pledge during your first run. Was just I saw that somebody that I followed on Kickstarter had backed your project, and so it showed up in my emails as this person or that person backed this. And I looked at it and I was like, "Oh, I'm backing that too." So,
well, I'm hoping that we can. I'm hoping we can see some of that too. I've actually been updating the original campaign this entire time, which I think you've seen that too.
Yes, I've seen those.
It's not been something that's spammed anyone by any means. I waited until we had something of substance, and then we put out, "Hey, this is what we're thinking." We were originally going to try and launch it last year in 2018. But the timing just wasn't working. It was not a good time to try and get a comic kickstarted, get it printed, and get it back and get it into people's hands. Because at that point, there comes a time with a comic book Kickstarter that when you're running towards the ends of the year, people start to think about the Christmas holidays, Hanukkah, and all that. And if I were going to work for later in the year, I want to be able to put that book in people's hands either before the holiday or shortly thereafter.
Yeah.
And with the Steel Road coming out the way it timed out, there just really wasn't that opportunity. So I took the what we had left over from that, I stuck it into a little bit more money into Whispers, more money into getting 47 Furious Tales done. Because you know me, I don't ask anyone to work for less than fair wages. I think that's immoral and a bad business model.
Right.
So we had artists with happy holidays, and we had, I think as a byproduct, some really, really strong page art that is shaping up out of Alexia. I mean, she's been dying to do this, and now she's got that financial means that she can take the time and actually apply it. I think it's making a world of difference for her, and it shows through in the art I'm seeing.
Nice.
Yeah, it helps market them when you have more artwork done too, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think I'm going to try a little different video this time. I think I'm just going to do a quick shot of me talking to people and just tell them what it's about and let them look it over and let them find their own path. I think it's more my speed anyway, just be open and honest and do it. I can't believe it's less than a week away. It's a little surreal.
Yeah, there's a lot of work to be done before then too, I'm sure. So
yeah, I'm shooting the video tomorrow.
So on the topic of the video, I'm just curious. You guys have both backed Kickstarters.
Right.
Do you watch the videos before you back the project?
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever backed something without watching it first, let alone not watching a video if I'm interested in it.
I guess I must be a rarity then, because I will just kind of look at the artwork and skim what it's going to be, and if I think it's interesting, I'll back it.
Yeah, I mean, like, if I know that I'm going to want to back it, I'll go ahead and back it first.
Right.
But, like, when you sent me Ghost Assassin, I unfortunately did not back that
Right.
because I was tied with money. But the first time that you sent me that and told me that it was up, that was like the first thing that I did. I wanted to like see everything and like
the video was cursed on that project too. Did I already tell you what happened with that, Sam?
No, but you seem like you were having some problems with it.
Oh, so two of my friends had come over weeks and weeks before I was ready to launch the Kickstarter. I think it was a good 3 weeks beforehand. And we set up all the Darkslinger convention displays because there's a really nice backdrop to go behind me, right?
Oh, sweet.
So it's this big 12-foot by, like, how tall is that thing? 10 foot, 8 foot, something like that. This big banner stand that has these 4 banners behind me. Got all the lighting done, all this stuff. But I'm not watching the video at all, and they're supposed to be. And I learned afterwards, as I go to edit it, that they had done the lighting so ultra bright that my eyebrow ring wasn't even visible. It's like you couldn't even tell I had an eyebrow ring. That's how bright and shiny everything was.
Oh, wow.
So I'm like, so I spent days and days and days trying to mess with this, editing it. But, I'm not a video editor. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just kind of winging it. And couldn't get it to work. Ended up not having enough time to do a reshoot and ended up just making a video that was a collage of all the different pages and talked over it for like a minute and a half and called it good at the end of the day.
Now for the Steel Road, our video corrupted.
Oh, really?
Oh, no.
Yeah, we didn't have a video for the entire thing.
Oh, that's horrible.
I spent really 5 days working on the video and putting it together, and I put it together, and I tested it, I played it, I uploaded it, and it worked fine in preview. I launched the campaign, and it wouldn't execute. I don't know. To this day, I don't know what happened.
Sucks.
And so I removed it and just put the image over it. But yeah, the video would not play. But I'll go through and I'll watch the videos. Now, one thing I am guilty of, if the video is boring me, then for like 20 or 30 seconds, I'll scroll down, and I'm going to scroll down and pick through what's in the campaign anyway, so I can see what the heck was actually going on. And the weird part about that is there was actually a comic that launched, I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday of this week, that's doing really, really well. And I looked at the video, and I was just like, I don't know. I couldn't get excited about it. And I looked down, and I read through it, and it just didn't catch my interest. Which maybe means I'm old and getting out of sync. I don't know. It's really lighting on fire on Kickstarter right now. I'm like, well, it's just not me.
Kickstarter kind of has one of those effects, though, where the things people aren't going to get a chance to see at a Comic-Con or a comic shop, that kind of stuff can oftentimes do better than the things that will do really well in the library or book or comic markets,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I always kind of factor that as two different reasons. Number one, if it's got a social cause, people on Kickstarter really, really love social causes, it seems like.
Very true.
The second thing is just the whole fact that if this is a specific niche that you like, this one kind of story right here, and there's no way in hell that's ever going to make it into a comic shop or whatever, you better back deep to get it out there,
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think that's kind of what those sort of things are attributed to most of the time.
Well, it's like Super Kids. I backed Super Kids because I've got children, that. And the idea of a mental health coloring book for kids in hospitals, I mean, how can you not back that,
Oh, I wasn't even aware of that one. Is that still going, or is that ended?
No, they actually just finished their funding. They beat their goal. I think they're just shy of 200%.
Oh, wow. Nice.
300 backers.
Nice.
So it was a really nice turnout by, I'll give them a plug here, Pop Culture Hero Coalition.
Okay.
They had some really, really great practices. They updated regularly. They had some guests on their update, which I thought that was really nice, which is fun. I've been doing that with one of my live streams, having guests on. You've seen that, and that's been lot of fun. I don't know if it's helped backing at all, but it's been just tremendous fun for everybody. So I'm going to keep doing it because it's just a real trip. But yeah, it's weird to me that the last year, the projects I've backed have all funded.
Uh-huh.
And it's just kind of cool. You know, it's just like, hey, look, I like this one. Oh, we can get that. And I'm glad. I'm really, really, really glad Ghost Assassin funded.
Me too.
You did really well. Just a few people too right off the bat. Everyone came out real strong for you.
Yeah. I think a lot of people had been impatiently waiting for me to do something new with that, because that was actually the first property I ever published in comics, but it kind of kept getting set on the back burner throughout my career. So there were a few people that really, really wanted to see me do something new. And I'm glad, because we have 3 issues that are in various forms of completion, and then the cover for number 4 is done, and Joel's getting started on the artwork for number 4 now. So, it's nice.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So, should be seeing a lot of Ghost Assassin this year, but you're not on the podcast talking about Ghost Assassin. That's what I'll go on yours for. So,
you know me, man. I'm all about promoting everybody.
Oh, yeah.
I'll say something about 47 Furious Tales. You know, I basically run on a shoestring budget anyway.
Right.
So, when the project first came up, I was brainstorming, and I had a lot of ideas that I had fermenting in my mind, and I maintain a closed Facebook group for the artists that I commission through, so we can bounce ideas and easily compare information, have ready access to stuff. People can tell each other what they've got going on, and cross-promote, point out different things that are going on. And I think it's done a lot to help all of us grow professionally. But I posted up these ideas, and one of them was 47 Furious Tales. And Alexia literally, probably less than 5 minutes later, is like, that's mine. And Zach Viola looked at Steel Road when he says, that's mine. And other people are like, I might like to do that. But no one else was really jumping on them. Like, well, I know the 2 projects I'm going to do. The ones that people are excited about. And, of course, Steel Road did really well. To the point that everyone wants basically a sequel to it, which a sequel is a bad word. They want another one further on down the line, and so we came up with a concept for that, and we're going to begin development on the road to the New World, and we're going to focus on weapons from the early stages of colonialism in the Americas through the conquest of South America, Latin America, and all that. So we're going to have a lot of stuff from Portuguese weapons, a lot of Spaniard weapons, Dutch weapons, and a lot of native tribal weapons. So it's going to be pretty neat to do. But 47 Furious Tales with Alexia, she's just been doggedly working on this in the background. We've been working on the story elements to keep it clean, and working on the way the panels flow from page to page. Mm-hmm. So that it's one of those things that you can read and get through it and have that whole story immersion is kind of the goal for it. And I hope we're right. I think we are. I think we've really nailed this one down. But when we first put it out there, she's like, "Well, what do you have for this?" And I said, "Well, this is how we're going to do it. We're going to put it through these 12 episodes." She's like, "Why 12? Why not do it as just one whole book?" And I said, "Well, I can't really expect to fund 300-page graphic novel right now. I don't see me crowdfunding $70,000 for that anytime soon.
Right.
Understandable.
It's a little bit easier to break it down, and honestly, just having the single issues, a lot of people in our industry seem to be down on single issues over the last couple of years, and just want everybody to go straight to trades or graphic novels or whatever. But there's a lot of power in having the single issues and being able to hit up comic cons and, taking them to comic shops and just kind of drum up more interest that way, Yeah. It's a lot easier to sell a single issue at your table than no issue at all, So
exactly. And it's hard to make a comic. I mean,
yeah.
You forewarned me of that, over a year ago. And man,
yeah.
Right. It's hard to make a comic. I'll tell you what we did come up with, though. And I know you publish other people's work. We had one of the artists came up. He had been talking with actually several of the other artists that I work with. And they wanted to put together an anthology of their various intellectual properties, and we've got that launching this summer.
Oh, nice.
It's actually all done except for the cover. And we're actually dedicating that to Stan Lee, and then going to send a copy up to Marvel so that they have it, just as our little way of, tipping our hat to one of the giants in the industry.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's awesome.
Cool. And it's really a murderer's row of talent in there, too. We got Nick Capone. We got Christian Martinez. We got Kelsey Cohen. We got Brian Lee, which is always a treat. We got Rebecca Elizabeth Coldheart. And it's just really good. We originally had Jake Ochoa as well. We had some health issues that unfortunately caused him to step down from that, but we wish him the best.
Yeah, absolutely. So on 47 Furious Tales, talking about, the singles, the collected editions, all that.
Yeah.
What is your ultimate plan? Are you planning on doing like 2 trades that have each of the 6 issues, 1 oversized hardcover? What are you thinking?
What we're going to do is we're going to go through all 12 issues, and then once all 12 are done, we're going to put together 1 hardcover.
Okay.
The plan for that is that once that's out, we're going to take, and a buddy of mine who does artistic woodworking is going to create a wood case for it, and we're going to send it to Japan, to the temple where Sano and the 47 are interred. Which is, one of the things that we do and have planned for these is that there's a space in the back interior cover for a haiku for this one elite backer tier that I'll work on with that backer. But issue 12 is reserved for Sano Naganori's death haiku. And so that's going to be what we have in the actual back interior cover of that eventual hardcover collection of it. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah,
it's a daunting task, but I mean, it's something that needs to be done. So we're going to get it done.
Right. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And yeah, I can't wait to, I wish I could skip ahead and get the hardcover, but I'm more than happy to get the singles until then.
I know, right? And there's just something about having the comic and then waiting on the next one. I almost think the anticipation makes it better.
Right.
But Neil Gaiman brought up a really good point a couple of months ago on Twitter. He was saying that it's easier for him to take care of his trade paperbacks, and they sit better on his bookshelf, and he doesn't have to go digging through long box to get to them. Mm-hmm. And he can just pick them up and read them whenever, and they hold up really, really well. And, it brings a really good point, but I still kind of like, my comic book feel and just that whole sensation of pulling it out of the bag and, revisiting it and going through and picking the story up, and it's nice. It's,
right.
Even if you have to wait a little while between issues, it's worth it.
Yeah, I can get behind that. I can totally get behind that.
Definitely.
And sometimes it's actually aggravating to read things in hardcover or trade paperback, because if it was meant for comic pages back in, say, like the 80s, they might have put the lettering really close to the spine side gutters.
Yep.
And when you try to read it in hardcover or trade paperback form, sometimes the lettering is right into the spine, and you can't make it out. I'm sure both of you guys have had that experience.
Yep. That's tough, too, yeah.
Yeah, it's
I'm trying to figure out how to hedge against that for it. I'm thinking that what I can do in the layout is actually use, since the layout size is going to be slightly larger, instead of enlarging the page, just take and run a background piece along the back and then layer the art over the top of that, so that I can keep the original page size, but not have this big white band all the way around it, so it looks like someone ran through a photocopier, maybe just put like some artistic trim around it. And I think that it's maybe a little more authentic,
Yeah, no, that sounds awesome. So, you have any questions yet?
So far, I think he's answering everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
I talk too much, I know.
No, you're perfectly fine. Oh, we got a music.
Hey, was I the first backer on
Ghost Assassin?
Ghost Assassin?
You were, in fact, yeah.
Remember I was looking at him like, wait, what's my backer number?
You're backer number 1 on that.
That's awesome.
That's wild, man.
Yeah,
I was sitting there waiting for it to launch too. I was like, I'm gonna get it.
I know, and that morning was just
share it on social media. I'm just like, as soon as I did, I got it. I'm like, all right, cool. It's like you've pledged this, now share it with others. I'm like, you better damn well believe it.
Yeah, that was such a frustrating morning because I was just about to hit launch, and there's no internet. And I look out the window, and there's like dump trucks and excavators outside doing something to the DSL lines. I have no idea what, but they completely knocked out my Wi-Fi, right?
Oh, no.
So I'm running around in circles in my house, and it doesn't ever occur to me to just pick up my phone and click launch from there, because that's something you do on a computer, not a phone. So, so I grabbed my laptop bag, and my girlfriend was living about, I think, 10 blocks away from me. So just booked it down to her place, and luckily, I had a key and went in there and finally got it launched. But it was a painful morning in a lot of ways.
Oh man, that just sounds really rough all the way around.
Right.
Now I'm really paranoid for Wednesday. I'm like, when do I want to do this? I have a bad habit of launching at noon Eastern time, which is like, hey, look, everyone on the West Coast is like, it's 9 o'clock in the morning. Why are you launching the Kickstarter now? And then everyone on the East Coast is like, I'm having lunch. What the hell? But the guys in Europe are like, oh yeah, I just got off work, and hopefully everyone will forgive me and catch up.
I've seen plenty of people launch their Kickstarters like 2 in the morning, and I know that they say statistically, there are certain times or days it's best to launch. But I don't know that that's true, because in order to factor that, you would have to do multiple, of the same project. So I think if a project is good enough and marketed well enough,
right,
then and enough people get behind and want it to be out there, it's going to get its funding. So speaking of that, what are you doing to market this time around?
I've been doing some interviews.
Okay.
We've been promoting steadily on the social media stuff. Of course, been following through with the previous backers. Been introducing the topic to the RPG gamers as well. Been reaching out to some other comic creators. Like look where I am now.
Right.
right here, talking to you. I've been talking to a bunch of people to see if I get some more interest stirred up. A little help in the social media platforms. Because I am not a social media influencer. I probably never will be. I was actually really surprised the other day. I looked up on my Twitter account and realized I'm approaching 300 followers, and I don't know how that happened. I really don't. I was just like, how? When did this happen? I don't know.
I still don't even understand how Twitter's supposed to work, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because I post links to my fan fiction and I talk to some people, but the other thing too is I'm just doing the same thing I was doing before. I try to build that sense of community. So I don't know if you've seen it yet, but the Darkslinger Mafia, Darkslinger Comics, you guys are mentioned in the back of Whispers of Persephone.
Oh no, I did not see that.
Yeah, you guys are straight up right in the back of the book. one of the people that I think on the Kickstarter update and all that.
I saw it in the Kickstarter update. I must just not have linked the two somehow.
Yeah, I mean, so I went through and I tried to make a point to say thanks to everyone that I see who's trying to influence it. It's damn near impossible to keep up with. It really is.
It is.
It's so tough.
It's difficult.
But I can't not say thanks to someone who's taking the time and pushed a little button and said, hey, yeah, this is kind of cool. Check this out.
Right.
Because they introduce new people to my work. Even if it's just, oh, hey, that looks cool, or hey, I got time for this. At least they see what's coming up, and some people are going to say, yeah, let me check out what's going on. And maybe they support it. Maybe they don't. Maybe they share it with other people. And the hope is that we can find enough folks to get the book out. The good news is our funding goal is much lower now. So,
what is your funding goal this time around?
$6,500.
Oh, okay, yeah. So you got it down a tremendous amount then.
Yeah, from $12,000 to $6,500. It's
nice.
Nice. I wasn't kidding when I said we've been doing a lot of work. Yeah, basically, if there was anything left over after Kickstarters that wasn't feeding me or my kids or going into the next immediate project, it was getting Curious Tales. So, yeah, it's that important.
Yeah, I can fully comprehend that. So, what's the plan post-Kickstarter? Say you get this funded, and I know there's the plans to do the other issues for Kickstarter, but are you planning on taking this to comic shops? Or are you going to be hitting up some Comic Cons?
Go ahead and get everyone fulfilled as quickly as we can at the highest quality we can. And so I took some notes on some things I've seen happen recently and heard about. And so that's why I asked you about other printers. That's why I have other printers in mind in case the printer I'm going to be using falls through. We're going to use PSP because of the turnaround time on the shipping. The price is comparable to Print Ninja. I got some samples in from them that were really good quality. And I can get a proof copy from them before they do the final print run. So I'm optimistic. I like the quality of what I saw. So the quality of the product is first and foremost what you have to focus on. Because if it looks like it's been put together on someone's printer, it's not going to carry a Sunoco Publishing tag on it.
Right.
It's just not. And so we'll get that out there. I'm going to the Garden State comic convention in New Jersey in the end of June, and so I'm going to take a lot of books there. And anything that's left, I'm probably going to save a couple of hundred back as part of a limited backer reward option for issue 2's Kickstarter when we get ready for that, in case anyone had missed the first one.
That's a very good idea.
Yeah, I like that.
And then, because we're not going to make it available on print on demand,
right?
Because I don't like how that looks when it comes out. Usually, we'll make it available digitally. Yeah, and that'll be cool. I hope. But I really don't want. I don't want to call it substandard. I want the best quality print I can get for the book because I take the subject very seriously.
Yeah, no, I can fully understand that.
So we're going to prep for that, and we're going to use the Garden State Comic Con is basically the home con for most of the artists I work with. And so we'll be setting up. We have an actual end cap already paid for at that, which is amazing for my first convention as a vendor. We've got 5 tables.
Oh wow!
We've got a 15 by 12 foot space.
Holy crap!
Yeah.
Do you have all your backdrops made yet?
No, I don't have any of them made yet. So I think I'm probably going to be very poor for brand identity. I'm going to get a couple of banners done, I think, because I'm still pretty new at this. I'm still scraping stuff together.
Right.
But we've got electricity, which is a big one, because we want electricity. Because I'm planning to stream the event.
Oh, nice.
Because I think it would be a cool thing to do. So that people can peek in and see how we're doing.
Right.
So I'll have to make sure that no one's picking their nose in frame or anything like that. But the artists who are going to come over and share that space with me, they're going to have their artist space there. So they'll be there as, representing the fantastic freelancers who work with me. Not all of the artists are going to be there, unfortunately, because some had some other commitments. We're going to be able to be there. But we're going to be having Brian Lee, Rebecca Coulthard, Nick Capone is going to be there with us. Zachary Viola is going to be there. Alexia Veldhausen is going to be there with me. It's going to be a really cool thing. I was hoping to get Lotus Blair along. Brian Lee is going to be there. I don't know if I said it wrong. But unfortunately, Lotus was otherwise committed. But if that changes, we might see if she wants to come too. Lotus is one of those rare finds, someone who's not been trained as an artist, but does just this amazing work naturally. It's really amazing, and I'm really terribly envious of it. It's sick. She does such amazing stuff, and I don't think she's ever had an art class.
Yeah, most of the artists that work for me, I don't think have.
Yeah, I mean, she's just producing these outlandishly good pages. Her first comic book, actually, contribution is in the anthology, and she's learning how to do comic pages from the other artists who are graduates of the Kubert School. So, I mean, she's getting, she jumped into the deep end of the pool, and she's swimming really well. I mean, she's really knocking it out. And it's going to be a wild thing to see when it comes out. 'Cause it's got different stories that are unrelated to each other, individual properties, different art styles, and it's a beautiful chaos. It really is.
Okay. Well, that sounds like it'll be an amazing time.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So it's going to be a fun little book. And it shouldn't be too hard to fund, because really we're just going to fund for the copy costs and distribution costs, and run with it. But, yeah, comics are a beautiful thing. I just hope I'm figuring out how to make them correctly, you know?
Well, if you need any advice, you know, you can always email me. So.
Oh, you know I'm going to so hard.
And yeah, there's always something to learn. And it seems
I'll have to send you the file so you can see what.
Absolutely.
I'll have to send you the file so you can see what it looks like once I've got the rest of this stuff laid out. It's looking pretty good. We have a couple of things right now that we're going back and retouching, fixing a couple page dimension issues, doing a little bit on some lettering problems of all things. And because lettering problems happen.
Yeah, I'm familiar with those. I am.
It's people will think, well, how do you do that? Well, you know, when you're working on the page and you know what's going on, and you write the wrong line in the wrong text bubble,
right?
You know? And you're like, wait, what? Imagine if you would, if Superman was arguing with Lex Luthor, and all of a sudden, Superman's lines are coming from Lex, and Lex's lines are coming from Superman, and everything goes in on a handbasket.
And you know, the crazy thing is Marvel and DC have published issues where that very thing happens. And it's like, if we can catch it on our level, how the hell do they not catch it on their level?
With an editor of all people.
Right? Like, not just one editor, but an assistant editor, an editor-in-chief, a publisher, president. It's like... Yep. It's going through like 12 people supposedly in that chain, and yet, you know, they can't even catch it when all of a sudden Beast is saying Magneto's lines.
That's someone opening it up and being like, yeah, it's fine.
So
and
we got...
yet here we are, you know, hammering comics together with a couple of artists and crowdfunding it and hoping that the backers like it enough to come back again.
Exactly, yeah.
Which is incredibly cool. I tell you, man, I have been really, really fortunate to have some backers who I guess I don't know if they like me or like my stuff, or it's just the fact that I fulfill, if not on time, really, really close to being on time. But they've been really, really cool about sticking with me since that first launch from Tale of the Wizard's Eye, when I literally did not know what the hell I was doing.
Right.
I mean, I don't claim to know it all now, but I mean, at least I'm not making mistakes about, you know, how you actually include in your Kickstarter what's included in the backer tier. You know, there's a button for that. You know, I didn't actually realize that when I launched the first one, so I just had written descriptions in there, and I was like, "Oh man, you can do that? Where's that at?" The things you learn, right?
Right. Yeah. My first Kickstarter I ever launched, I think, has like one paragraph, and I didn't put any preview art or anything like that. It's just like the most bare bones thing ever, because I'm like, well, people are only finding this because they're coming over from my sites, right? Oh, no, this is like its own entity. Oops. That was when Kickstarter was pretty much brand new. So I think we got time for 2 more questions. So number 1, what were your favorite comics when you were growing up?
Oh man, when I was a little kid, My favorite comic was actually Rom the Space Knight from Marvel.
Oh, nice. You don't hear that one too often, but that's a good one.
Of all things, right?
Uh-huh.
And then when the 90s came up, and I was grown and doing the whole work thing and traveling around, I like The Punisher, but I think the one comic that really leaps out at me has got to be Aria from Avalon Studios.
Yeah, we've talked about that one before. Fantastic.
I mean, I talk about it all the time because, I mean, the artwork for that book, for any of those books in that series, even the Aria Blanche and Noir, black and white, is just amazing. You know, it's amazingly composed, amazingly well composed. I'll get it out eventually. Think I was a writer, right? I mean, I put out 4 books last year. I had to do so. I at least built a couple of sentences that weren't stupid, right? But yeah, I think Aria was definitely my favorite in the 90s and early 2000s. And then after that, in the early 2000s particularly, I caught on to Knights of the Dinner Table by Jolly Blackburn. And that's just wholesome, good fun for me. I really, really, really dig that.
Now that one is a parody of tabletop gaming, right?
Yeah, I love what Jolly does with it. I mean, he talks about some of the difficulties in creating that on his Facebook page too. And he was talking the other day about continuity and how it's hard to keep continuity when you've been writing a comic for almost 20 years. You know?
Yeah, that's still going, right?
Yeah. I mean, he talks every month about Deadline Rabbit breathing down his throat. And he's like, I'm chasing that Deadline Rabbit. It's coming to get me.
You know, it's funny. I buy a lot of comic collections because, you know, I'm a reseller in my day job.
Right.
You know, I hate to spoil the illusion, but Darkslinger is not my full job. But it seems like every collection I buy has like one random issue of Knights at the Dinner Table in it. But just one.
You know, that's one that I had never even heard of until we went to, God, I think the first Sasquatch when I was going through Tommy's books and found one with a Ghostbusters cover.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I had no idea what it was, but it was like $1, so I picked it up.
Yeah, it's one of those comics that's been going forever, and it has a very avid fan base, but not necessarily, you know, a very big fan base.
Right.
So, kind of like FemForce. I think that book's been going for like 300 issues now or something like that too.
Oh, shit.
And and you don't find very many people who are fans of it, but those fans you find, you know, they're big fans.
Right.
I mean, they're committed. They're incredibly loyal to it.
Oh yeah, definitely. So for the last question, unless Levon has any at the end of this, what do you think about comic prices in this day and age? I don't know if you've caught any of our comic pricing episodes, but this has been something we've been talking a lot about.
No, this is a big deal. Comic prices keep running up, and
yes,
this gets beyond just like the hobbyist level. I mean, it gets to the point where you have to talk about how it impacts society, and I realize that seems a little grander than most people expect, but the thing about comics is comics encourage kids to read.
Yes.
You know, I mean, my comic isn't a kid's comic. I mean, it's
right.
not. It's full of very graphic violence. I mean, we have prostitutes in this. We don't have, like, nudity and pornography or anything like that. But we have adult subject matter.
Yeah.
But comics encourage children to read. And you have to have something that facilitates that. I mean, kids are on their tablets all the time anymore. So, I mean, if your comic is digital, that's great. I mean, but why would you charge $3 for a digital comic?
Yeah.
You know? I mean, if you're let me amend that a little bit. If you're a major entity with a lot of revenue to produce it, and the actual art costs are such a minimal expense, the actual creative costs are such a minimal expense, when your fan base is 150,000 people broad for a particular title, and that's a small title for you, I mean, you're going to spend maybe 6 to 10 grand creating that book on art and writing, you know? If you're, like most of the larger companies, using freelancers, which is a shame, really, for the economics of what it does for the artists. But there's a big difference between that $10,000 and that $300,000 and $450,000 range that they're recouping off the site.
Right.
You know, and so it's a big business. But at the same token, what happens when you have the kids who, you know, their parents can't afford a $3 electronic comic, or they can't afford a $4.95 comic? I mean, it's one thing that it's a real concern for me, because when I look at the comic and I'm like, man, I'm going to charge $2.95 for this, that makes me feel a little uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You know? And I think part of it is because I'm just older, and I can remember buying comics for 50 cents in the 70s, and, you know, $1.50 in the 90s, and then up into $2, and, you know, et cetera. I've seen the price jump in my lifetime.
Right.
I think that if more people are going to come to comics, I think that the big thing is that we have to make, especially the comics that are child friendly, we have to bring the pricing issue under control. Mm-hmm. We have to. I mean, I would love to produce some children's comics so that my kids have it to read. I mean, my youngest is going to be 5 this year, and we just got done today. We were doing homework and writing her name on her homework. It was the first time I ever saw her write her whole name.
Uh-huh.
And, you know, she's 4.5. She's blind in one eye.
Oh.
And she's been blind in that eye since birth. And she wrote her whole name today. And it was just this incredible moment for me. And she tells me all the time she wants to learn to read. Her teachers are working with her, and she's trying really hard. And we read every night. Mm-hmm. And I read to her every night. But she has a visual impairment. It's very hard for her to discern characters. So I look forward to the day when she can read. I would love for her to be holding a comic, or even a tablet that had a comic book on it that was written for. Yeah, that's it. I've decided now. I'm writing a comic book for my daughter.
Nice.
No, I'm serious.
I fully believe you.
I made that decision right here. I'm going to write a comic for my daughter.
That's fantastic.
I am. And I think I know how I'm going to do it on the art. Yeah, easy enough. That's the advantage of being the one-man show, right? If you can raise the money for it, you can do it.
Yep.
And so it's almost like your own personal podium, but, you know, it doesn't have to be obnoxious.
Right.
Okay, I want to make comics for kids. Okay, let's make comics for kids. So.
Yeah, so cool. one of our fellow creators out there who seems like they've worked out at least somewhat of a solution to you know, the pricing structure is Peter Samedi over at Alternate Comics. Are you familiar with them at all?
Only tangentially, because I just became aware of him really with some of the recent broadcasts. Okay. Not just from the Darkslinger Mafia, but there's been a lot of people talking about this issue.
Yeah.
All over the place. You see it even on the Facebook groups and the indie comic groups and stuff like that. People are talking about it a great deal, because obviously it would be nice to be a full-time comic creator, but the financial reality of it is all of us have day jobs.
Right.
You know, I mean, I work for the courts during the day.
Yeah.
You know, and then my afternoons and evenings are with my child, and then after she goes to sleep, I'm writing, editing, writing checks to artists, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You know the drill.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And at the end of it, I have a book to show for it, and that's an amazing thing, and people seem to dig them. But for folks who are committing so much time to it, I think eventually it just they get tired of chasing the goal. You know? Right. I think comes a point where maybe the effort has just worn them down. And I hate to see that. But so that's where this conversation becomes so important, because it's not just the final price to the consumer, which is really important, but also the financial impact it has on the artists and such. Because we don't want artists who are basically working for $1 an hour. Right. We don't want that. I think really you want eventually to get to a point where you can pay people, you know, as the skilled labor that they are. Actually, Alexia Veldhausen has told me repeatedly that she hopes that Sonoma Publishing grows enough so that I can hire her full time one day, because that's her dream job, is to be a full time, you know, artist, and she's remarkably good at it. And I hope so too. I would like to be able to employ some people full time eventually.
Absolutely.
But the reality of that is that you would have to have an audience base measured in high five and at least high five figures at least.
Right.
Just to sustain it.
Yeah, you would. One of the things Peter's been doing is, of course, the newsprint line. You're aware of that.
Yeah.
And he can sell them for $1.50 a piece. We recently discovered that the printer he has been or had been using is a 33-minute drive from my house.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't know that before. So, that would cut out a lot of the cost because, as you're probably aware, one of the biggest costs in printing is the shipping. But if I could just drive and pick my orders up, minus those that I'm having shipped out to any distributor, of course, direct from the printer, that's going to save me an immense amount of cost right there, So I've really been thinking about it. But it seems like there is a certain amount of a divide between people who want newsprint to return and those who are glad it left. So what are your thoughts regarding newsprint specifically?
I think that newsprint was good enough for 70 years.
Right.
And I think that one of the big concerns that people mention is that colors tend to bleed a little more. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that. I think if you adapt your art style to fit your medium, you're fine. I think maybe we are a little spoiled with some of the heavier paper. I mean, I like the heavier paper, I do.
Right.
But, literally just a couple minutes ago, I decided out of nowhere to write a comic for my daughter. I'll probably put it on newsprint because I don't need something that has the high level of detail I would see on a Batman comic, or that I would see on Ghost Assassin, or that I would see on 47 Furious Tales. I can get away with those early, golden age, simple lines, and if the color bleeds a little bit, it bleeds a little bit. But by the same token, I can put that comic in some kid's hand, and they can discover, fantastic adventures, and they can have remarkable experiences wrapped in a story, and pretty soon they're reading because they enjoy it.
Right.
And if the cost of that is that the color bleeds a little bit, so what?
Right.
I know I come off as a horrible idealist. I do sometimes. I don't mean to preach. It's just...
Oh, no. It's perfectly fine.
Like so many issues, there are two sides of it. And I think that there's a really great argument for using newsprint. There's really great arguments for using the heavier papers. And I think what it comes down to is what comic are you making and what's going to work for it. If I were Charles Schultz, I can get away with newsprint all day long.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And people to this day still read Charles' stuff.
Yep.
And he's been dead for ages. And it's powerful little tales, powerful little strips. A boy and his dog and his friends and school and playing. And it's something people relate to. And you don't need a 85-pound paper there to absorb fine lines when you've got a circle for a head and a wavy line for hair. And the real joy of it is just the simple story that unfolds.
Right. Yeah, I think the same could be said of Calvin and Hobbes.
Yeah, that's another really great example.
That one continues to bring kids into our medium to this day, too.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I've met several kids at Comic Cons who want to be comic creators, or they want to find more comics because of Calvin and Hobbes.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and before we close this out, I'll tell you guys a story really quick about one of the cutest little guys that I saw this year. So I was at the Hillsborough Library Days, and if you ever want to build up a big audience with kids, by the way, library shows are definitely a way to go.
Okay.
There were tons and tons of kids there. I think in 2 days at this library show, I saw more kids there than I think I've ever seen at ECC, which is the Seattle Con that draws in something like 70,000 attendees every year. So just a ton of kids there. But this one little guy comes up to me, and I'm going to say he's 6 or 7, something like that. He's a pretty little guy. But he comes up and he looks me square in the eyes and goes, "Hey, are you a comic creator?" It's like, "Yeah." "So am I." It's like, "Oh, well, that's good. What'd you create?" well, I really like Calvin and Hobbes. And I was like, oh, there we go, another kid that got brought in by Calvin and Hobbes. That's awesome. You know, that thing hasn't even been running since 96, and it's still bringing in kids.
Yeah.
He reaches into his backpack, and he's got this manila folder, and he gets it out, and he opens it up, and hands it over to me, and he's like, this is my comic. It's called Jim Cat. I'm like, okay, Jim Cat. And I read the story, and it's about this guy that's working out in a gym who accidentally runs out in front of traffic, and somehow the crash merges him with a cat, and now he's got a cat for a head. And he's like this big muscle-bound guy. I thought it was the cutest comic. But it was pretty funny. The guy, I cannot remember his name for the life of me, but he's Mike Allred's co-creator on iZombie. It's Chris. Can't think of his last name. Anyway, he was giving the keynote speech at the library. He did a really good job and gets to the end of it and asks for questions. And this kid stands up and just boldly proclaims, I just want to let you know, I'm a comic creator, too. And then it sits down. I was like, that's got to be one of the most fantastic experiences I've ever had at a Comic-Con. So
that's fantastic, man.
Right? I mean, it was great.
That's just awesome beyond description. I can't even put that in words.
And Robert and I gave him just as much support as we could. You know, his dad's sitting there. I'm so sorry, guys. We're like, no, he is a good comic creator. This stuff is fantastic. You know, you need to keep doing this. It's looking great. You know, I told him I think the best thing he had going for him was his storytelling ability, because, you know, I could tell exactly what was happening in the story, even if the art, you know, didn't convey it quite, you know.
Right.
He did a really, really good job of basically laying out the way the characters should interact, even if they were a little bit more than just stick figures, you know. He had a good sense of sequential storytelling about him for a 6-year-old.
And that's really hard to come up with.
It is. That
really is.
Yeah, I really hope that he keeps up with it, but I just loved how bold he was. He was just so bold about it.
Well, I'll tell you, I have one con story for you, because I haven't been a vendor yet. I did actually speak on a panel at Frankfurt Con. Its first founding, about crowdfunding of all things. And so I went there, and they had jumbled up the schedule real bad, and so there was a cosplay contest that had run over, which was cool. And then another one that they had scheduled the wrong one before. We got all this sorted out. And so I had like 5 people in the room at first. And there was this one woman there, and her husband was out trying to chase down this one comic book that he was looking for his collection. And so she sat through there, and people were asking questions. A few people wandered in and out. And she and her husband had been creating a comic. And they were wondering about how to go about getting the money to get it printed. And so we literally sat there and went through the whole spiel about how you kickstart stuff and what are the concerns, and keeping your eye on shipping and managing your costs and how to prepare for it. And it was a really great interaction, not just with her, but with everybody there, on trying to convey to people, yeah, you can do this, you can make it happen. And what was nice about it is you know how I get when I talk about this stuff. It's like the key thing is to be genuine with your backers and to be sincere and produce the best thing that you can for them. Because so long as you do the best work you can, they're going to appreciate that. And if it's good, that's even better, you know. But do the best that you can and bring it to them with every effort you can muster. And they are actually planning to launch their Kickstarter at the end of this year.
Oh, nice.
So I was really, really tripped out about that. I was really happy. So we'll see. We'll see what comes of it. I hope they succeed. I hope they fund really well and that it does well for them. They've been working on it for about 2 years, and it's a neat little concept. I'm not going to butcher it because that conversation was 8 months ago. But I remember thinking, this is kind of neat. I said, I think that you guys get the art together, you're going to really have something there, and we'll see. We'll see what comes up from them. I'm probably going to bump into them again. Because I'm going to the con on the 26th. But I'm not going to be doing any presenting or any vending or anything. I'm taking my little girl in her little miraculous ladybug costume. let her go to the con in her costume so that she can be a little cosplayer and just have fun. be a kid at the Comic-Con.
That sounds awesome. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been so much at shows, it doesn't seem like I get to do this stuff with my kids enough. But it's great when I get to, so.
Yeah, I'm just kind of deliberately taking the con off. Because, that first one as a vendor in June is going to loom large in my mind, and I'm going to enjoy this as what it is. I'm just going to go and let her go see all the other costumes and have some junk food, and probably going to see if I can find one of my friends to come with me, because I'll need someone to go with her into the bathroom. Because that costume zips all the way up in the back. That's just a little hard for a 4-year-old,
Right, yeah. That would be tough.
Yeah.
Do you have anything aside from Facebook that you or Alexia have the artwork posted on?
Yes, we have a website.
Okay, awesome.
That is up. I'm glad you asked, because I completely forgot about that. That's terrible, isn't it? And she set it up because I was tied up with the Steel Road at the time. It's Alexia Veldhausen. It's ALEXIAVELDU. Pardon me. UISEN.wixsite.com /47 Furious Tales /cash. And 47 is just the number 4 and 7.
Okay.
And I'm going to send you a link real quick.
All right.
And you're going to find that it's got the character art for what we have. And, of course, that main image for it is still that cover image. It's just a powerful and very versatile image. We've been able to put it on merchandise. We've been able to put it on posters. It was originally done in a very high resolution, so it comes out very nice, very clean. It looks great. I've got a poster of it in my office, actually. It reminds me every day to focus on it. It sounds a little obsessive when I say it out loud. It kind of just reminds me to keep on it. And you can flip through it. It's a little high point of the story. The cast section is where you're going to see the character art that she uses as references for the actual comic. And so you're going to see Oishi Yoshio, Chikara, and then, of course, Asano Naganori, Kira, Yahei, Yasube, and then Michiko, who's our geisha, Iwa, who's our prostitute, and one of the unsung heroes who doesn't probably get as much play in the stories as he deserves, Kinemon Kanahide, who is kind of this low-flying guy who didn't really stand out to a lot of folks, but was absolutely incredibly important in the Eiko incident, because without him, the attack probably wouldn't have succeeded. And I'm not going to ruin how that plays out, but it's really important. And then Tarasuke Nobuyuki. And he was the actual youngest of the 47. And the best estimates that I've found suggest he was actually 12 years old when Asano died. And was committed to the cause of avenging Asano's death at 12. He was also notably the only member of the 47 who was spared by the shogun and lived a very long life. And when he died, he was interred next to his fellows with Asano.
Huh. I never heard that part of the story before.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah. And so he's just, the thing about him that gets me though is the character image is so incredibly cute. I just want to make him into a plushie. You look at him and he's like, oh, he's so small and cute and vicious looking.
Well, maybe you should get in contact with the crew over at Skeleton Key. I think it's Skeleton Key or Skeleton Crew, something like that. That's right up the alley of what they're looking to do with independent comic creators. They made a bunch of lock and key keys Hellboy replica items from like the artifacts you see in the Hellboy stuff. And if I'm not mistaken, they made a Mouse Guard plush. And they've worked with Tyler James on the C for Cthulhu stuff. So there's somebody who...
That's nifty.
Yeah, they work with independent comic creators, and they made all kinds of stuff. They made some really, really kick-ass stuff, too. So
nice. Yeah, man, if you can shoot their info to me, I'd love to talk to them.
Yeah, I can absolutely do that.
I would love to get Nobuyuki made into a plush toy. I think if you look at him, if you go to the website, he's the very last of the ones listed there. And he's just cute and vicious. But, there's funny things that you find, because there's the historical record and then there's the literary accounts, and the two have a lot of similarities, and there's some fantastic legends and different stories that people have told as they've taken liberties. So trying to untangle it all is probably a fool's errand, but there's some things that came up that I found that I liked in the stories that were referenced in the historical document. And that one of the things was, particularly with Yasube, he was a big guy. I mean, he was a really big guy. He actually he married into Yahei's family, and Yahei adopted him as a son afterwards. So he was the son-in-law and the son at the same time. Kind of weird thing to think of now, but it was basically, of all the things, Yahei, who was 77 when Asano died, was so impressed by Yasube's skill at arms. He was such a capable samurai, such a profoundly gifted warrior, that he welcomed him into the family openly. I mean, it was a profound honor, because the Horube family was incredibly well distinguished servants of the daimyos of Eiko, and Yahei himself, I mean, was an old man who had survived every battle that had been thrown at him. I mean, that was a bad dude. And he was impressed by Yasube. And so there's a lot of nuance that you pick up as you read through it. These were some tough guys.
Right.
No doubt about it.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. And the Kickstarter is launching once again on January 23rd, correct?
That's right, Wednesday. We're going to kick it off, and I hope that everyone will come out, check it out, support the Kickstarter if you can. And if you can't pledge to it, please do share it on social media and help us find the support we need to get this funded and get it out into the world.
Yeah, and tell people in person about it, too.
Definitely.
So.
Yeah, definitely. If you're at the comic shop, make mention of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll be doing my part, passing it around a little bit. And
yeah.
I appreciate it, guys. And I'll tell you, we're going to give everyone the best book that we know how to make.
Excellent.
And coming to the fact I've got Alexia Bellhausen on my team, I'm pretty optimistic about the quality of it. You know what I mean? And you're going to see that in the images that are in the Kickstarter.
All right. Well,
I'll shoot you a preview this weekend once I get those color pages loaded up.
Sounds fantastic. We're definitely looking forward to it, and I'm pretty positive you got your got two of your backers you need sitting right here. So.
Absolutely.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it, because I'll tell you, every single one counts. I mean, when you look at it, when you're ready to launch, that number always seems to look a little bigger than it did when you put it together. You know?
Right. So, all right. I think that's it for tonight. Adam Watson.
All right, guys.
Levon Baker.
Thank you for listening, and thank you for being on, Sam.
Anytime, man.